So, to pick up the words that we've missed over here and to kind of put some of it together for you, we want to start with the big three. Clemenceau, David Lloyd George, and of course, good old Woody Wilson of the United States. Why did I put Vittorio Orlando up there? Because he really, really wanted it to be the big four. But remember, Italy had welched on their agreement, right? They had backed out, they waited for the war to get going a little bit, and then they're like, yeah, we think they'll win. Hey, go Allies! Woo! Yeah, we're on your team. Remember the lure that got them into the van? Come on in. Come on in, Italy. We have yummy, yummy parts of Austria-Hungary to share with you. Right? Okay? So when the war's over, Vittorio Orlando heads up to Versailles and he's like, hey, all right, how about those chunks of land you promised us? And the Allies are like, what? Who are you? I don't promise. I didn't make any promises like that. What are you talking about? So Vittorio Orlando is there trying to get some payoff for Italy having jumped into the war. And Italy suffered some pretty severe casualties on the side of the Allies. Do you remember reading about the Battle of Caporetto? Yeah. So bad that their army literally ran away. Doesn't matter that they weren't victorious at that battle, it matters that they fought on the side of the Allies, so far as Italy is concerned. Now, they aren't the only ones who end up pretty unhappy with how the Treaty of Versailles ends up. The Japanese are also unhappy. They, too, had joined the war on the side of the Allies. Not because it was the right and righteous thing to do, but because, like Italy, they thought they could get something out of it. Japan, of course, is already started down that road to building an empire. And what they are seeking to acquire is more land in Asia. They want some colonies, they want some more territory. All they're going to get is a few islands and some territorial claims and some permissions to do things in China and Korea. So they're going to be pretty unhappy. There are going to be some other folks who are unhappy. We'll come back to them in a second. We need to talk about this war guilt clause. This war guilt clause. It's kind of the catch-all name that's given to a chunk of the Treaty of Versailles that is the punishment section for Germany. But I'm going to ask you, why did the Allies, well, who amongst the Allies most wanted to punish Germany? France. Oh my gosh, they are all about making the Germans suffer. How long have they hated the Germans?
Since day one.
At least since 1879 and the Franco-Prussian War. Oh my gosh, that keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. Now, who won that war? Prussia did. And what they get as the spoils of war? Alsace and Lorraine. Exactly. They won fair and square, they get to keep the goods. France doesn't like that. Why is France so ticked off about it? They know they lost. Why is France still resenting that war?
They want Alsace.
They want their land back, but they were tricked into that war. If you trick me into fighting you when I lose, it's not fair. They were tricked into that war by Bismarck. So they're still holding that grudge. So they definitely intend to get that land back. But then, Germany, or Britain wants to make sure Germany just can't make war again, right? France wants to make sure that Germany can't make war again or ever do anything. If France could break Germany's spine and make sure that Germany has to be fed through a tube for the rest of its existence as a country, France would like that. Britain's okay with, now let's just chop their legs off so they're stuck in a wheelchair the rest of their lives. Which is what ends up in the war guilt clause. No army beyond 100,000 men. It's a tiny little army for this time. No navy, including those dreadful little U-boat things you cause so much terror with. No air force. None whatsoever. Now remember, Kaiser Wilhelm had been very proud of his navy. He started that buildup, which is what made Britain so nervous that Britain actually went and made friends with France. Right? The Germans so hate the part of the Treaty of Versailles that says you have to hand over your fleet to the Allies, then instead of doing that, they take their allies out of their North Sea naval base, or they take their ships out of their North Sea naval base, like they're going to deliver them to the Allies, and instead they sank their own fleet. Okay, think about this. You're old, you're married, you spend your time restoring your favorite car, okay? Takes you years. You get it to beautiful condition. It is fantastic. It wins awards at shows. And now you're going to get a divorce. And your spouse has been awarded the car that you spent all of that time restoring. If you're Germany, you take that car out and you drive it into a tree and you total it just so they can't have it. That's what they did. That's how strongly they felt. Okay? I hope you never have to. Okay. Germany is also saddled with these reparations. Reparations is kind of like what it sounds like. Reparations, repair. Germany has to pay to make the nations that had to fight them whole. It has to pay for the costs that it took for the Allies to go and fight Germany, and it has to pay the costs to rebuild those allies. So Belgium and France have a lot of rebuilding to do. Most of the fighting took place on their territory, and they got to be put back together. That's expensive. Now, one of the most controversial parts of this clause is the one that gives it its name, the War Guilt Clause. Germany is made by signing the Treaty of Versailles. They are forced to accept all culpability for causing World War I. Culpability is a fancy word for responsibility or blame. France has used the Treaty of Versailles to impute Germany for World War I. Now let's go back in time. Okay? Let's go back to 1914. It's June. Some Austrian prince goes to Sarajevo in Bosnia? Yeah. And some guy from a neighboring country, little country of Serbia, crosses the border and shoots the prince, which of course antagonizes Austria-Hungary, right? But also, when Austria-Hungary says to Serbia, hey, that was your dude, come on, who gets threatened? Who's Serbia's friend?
Russia.
Russia. So Russia's like, hey, be picking on our buddy. When Russia gets aggressive, who's threatened by that? Germany. Germany says, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't you be talking that way to our friends. And Russia goes, what? Who, me? Mobilize the armies. Quick, mobilize the armies. Germany and Austria-Hungary get word that Russia has mobilized their armies, and they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. All right, mobilize the armies. Don't go mobilizing the armies. That's really threatening to us. We don't want war. Mobilize the armies. So because a radical from a separatist group shot a guy who wasn't the leader of the country in a place that wasn't his country or their country, all the neighbors got riled up and started a fight on the other side of the continent. Who actually sent troops over the border first? Russia.
Dang, Russia.
And whose heir to the throne was it that was shot? So why is Germany having to accept guilt for this entire war? Well, because France hates them, yeah, but they're one of the biggest players. Who are the biggest players? On the losing side. Why are we punishing Russia? They're the ones who mobilized their troops first. They're the ones who supported the separatist country that sent the crazy pants to shoot the prince.
Russia's not there.
What? Russia walked out in the middle of the fight, remember?
Yeah.
And now they have a totally different government. Can't punish what doesn't exist. What about Austria-Hungary? Why aren't we punishing them? They don't exist anymore either. So Germany is going to take it in the gut from the Treaty of Versailles because they're the only survivor left. Ugh. Right? All right. So what is this going to do? This is going to give tremendous frustration and resentment to Germany. They've lost really productive lands. They've lost their earlier spoils of war when they lost the Alsace and Lorraine. They can't have any troops in that whole western section of territory, the Rhineland. The Saar is where they get all of the coal to fuel all of their factories, and now the French get all the good stuff out of there. The German currency, the mark, is falling in value because as Germany needs to make these payments, they're just printing more. Well, just because you have more doesn't mean it's worth anything. So they devalue their own currency, making it further impossible for them to pay their war debts. So then France, in insult of insults, basically invades, which they can totally get away with. Why? 2 reasons. 1, no troops guarding the western front of Germany. And 2, 100,000 German troops with outdated weapons. No planes, no tanks, no subs, no ships. What are they going to do? Right? So, France is rubbing Germany's nose in their loss. If France comes in and takes the most productive parts of Germany, and takes control of them and takes the stuff, how is Germany supposed to make any money to pay the debts back? That's right, they can't. So add that to the resentment over being forced to take sole responsibility for having caused this war. And are the German people a little ticked? And they certainly know that it was France who was the driving force behind all of this. Voice of reason. Dawes comes in and he says, hey, let's restructure this debt. Let's work this down a little bit. Let's make it more manageable. Because isn't it better to get a little less than to get nothing at all? Because if Germany collapses, you're getting nothing. Right? Okay. Well, all of that inflation, all of that suffering, all of that guilt gives rise to people who want to place some blame for Germany's suffering. Some of these nationalists stand up and they say that government, that German government that existed right after the end of World War II, or World War I, that signed that treaty, it's all their fault. They're a bunch of French puppets. They signed our lives away. But we blame the French. They are scapegoating, right? We've heard that before. Mention Hitler. He's going to get some traction here. Especially when he gets into power in the early 30s. He's going to turn the economy around by ignoring all of the restrictions that were placed on Germany. And making the German people feel good about themselves and feel successful again. Yeah. For all of the bad that Hitler did, when we start talking about Germany, you're going to see the effective leadership and the effective economic thinking that he had. Total crazy pants, but still an effective leader. Napoleon, brilliant general, pretty good at managing his country. His ego, total crazy pants, right? You can be bad and good at the same time. Okay? All right. Locarno. France, Belgium, Germany get together in Switzerland and they say, hey, these borders we've got here, they look good. Right. And Britain, for some reason, signs on and says, yes, they look good and we are so happy that you guys all like where they're at. In fact, we're so happy that you guys all like where they're at, we will guarantee those borders. Full refund to any nation that gets invaded. Not full refund. We will defend any nation invaded across those borders in this Locarno Pact. back to U.S. history for a little bit. Clear back to 8th grade. George Washington's farewell address. He says to the people of the United States, no entangling alliances. Don't sign treaties that can suck you into other people's problems. Locarno Pact. What sucked Britain into World War I? Entangling alliances. What sucked Russia and Germany and Austria-Hungary into World War I? Entangling alliances. Oh my gosh, this war was terrible. The loss of life, the loss of money, everything was awful. Let's prevent it by creating some more entangling alliances. All right. Now, Wilson and his self-determination. Does self-determination result from the Treaty of Versailles? Yes!
Yes.
And no. You are right and you are wrong. Self-determination happens all over the place where people look like David Lloyd George, Woodrow Wilson, George Clemenceau. Austria is created, Hungary is created, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Poland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all get their independence. But in Africa, where the people didn't look like the folks around the table at the Treaty of Versailles, where the people didn't look like the folks around the table at the Berlin Conference, remember that one? Germany's colonies go to France. In Southeast Asia, status quo. In fact, a little fella by the name of Ho Chi Minh travels all the way from French Indochina, knocks on the door of Versailles and says, hey, can I be heard? I read these proposals. Self-determination, that's what my people want. We want to govern ourselves. Please, 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 tell the French to go home. Let us govern ourselves. A little clerk takes down his message, passes the word. Doesn't happen, does it? And we'll have to deal with Mr. Ho Chi Minh a little later, won't we? Self-determination. All right. What else? Ooh, I'm almost out of time. All right. Questions? Are you familiar with the word hypocrisy? You will be able to draw a line from the Franco-Prussian War through World War I and the Treaty of Versailles, through the rise of fascism to World War II. Think of the Franco-Prussian War and World War I as your appetizer. World War II will be your entree. Dessert is going to be the Cold War. And Ukraine and Crimea, that's what you're burping up because you ate too much dessert. The Cold War is coming back to haunt you. World War and world history are awesome. You what? That's good stuff. All right.